What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here, and today we're taking a look at the Move trainers from While on Earth. All right, so While on Earth is a new brand for 2024. The founders are Matt Frazier, Brooke Wells, and Todd Mulaney. If you're from the CrossFit space, those names are probably going to sound pretty familiar to you, but if you're not, a little bit of background. Matt Frazier is arguably the most dominant champion of the CrossFit Games on the male side. Brooke Wells is a 9 times CrossFit Games competitor, and together they formed While on Earth. A name that doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue, so people in the space have just been calling it WOE or WOES, which I gotta be honest with you, is not that great of an acronym for a brand either, but While on Earth is kind of tough to say, so it's really a pick your poison kind of thing. And branding and naming aside, I honestly don't really care that much as long as the product perform. So recently they came out with the Move trainer, which I've been testing over the course over the last month or so, and I've done just about everything that you could possibly do in these shoes. This is my beat up pair of the Dune colorway with citron accents, which is a really nice colorway. And then they recently sent me the Beet and Oat colorway, which is probably my favorite of all the launch colorways. It's a nice shade of red, it's a deep shade of red. And then the accents on it are a lighter shade of red with some blue accents as well. They also sent me the Seaport colorway, which kind of has that nautical theme to it. And this is primarily blue, obviously lighter blue accents or cyan accents. And then the Oat refers to the color of the TPU wrap, and it is the same color between pretty much all of them, which is a nice kind of off-white shade. And then the outsoles on the red are red, and then the blue are gum. I'm gonna put the Dunes away for right now because they're just so beat up and dirty. But we're gonna talk about the construction first of the Move trainers, looking at the Seaport and Beet colorways. So these use a knit upper that they are calling Thrive Knit. So like normal knits, it's very flexible. It bends where you want it to. It's extremely breathable. These are some of the most breathable trainers that you can get right now, but they still have some kind of structure to them because there is a reinforced layer on the inside. So the benefit of having something like that is so that you still have structure to do your lifts. The shoe is still flexible where you need it to be, and it still retains that breathability that you would want from a shoe that you're going to be wearing all day and through longer and harder training sessions. So the midsole is covered on the shoe by this midsole wrap, like I mentioned earlier. This piece is made out of TPU and pretty much spans all around the shoe. Inside of that is where you'll find the actual midsole of the shoe, which is made out of EVA foam, just normal EVA, nothing crazy, just kind of the standard foam. And the shoes have a 6mm heel to toe drop. Now, taking a look at the lacing system on this shoe, we have a webbed lacing design, and these eyelets connect into both the lateral and the medial side. You can't see it on the lateral side, but there are the panels that run inside the shoe to give the shoe more structure, and these eyelets right here, or this overlay, basically connects into them. And then on the medial side, there is a medial rope guard that this panel connects into as well, and it gives you that more customizable fit around the middle of your foot. Now, the tongue on this shoe is a nice padded and comfortable mesh tongue, and you have a generous amount of cushioning around the heel and ankle collar. It's very plush in this area, though I will say that the back part of the shoe is kind of too vertical and never really feels like your heel is totally locked down when you have these shoes on. Though you do have the option to lace lock, which I would recommend if you run into that problem. Now, taking a look at the outsole of the shoe, we have a flat contact outsole that is completely made out of rubber. The lug depth on this is probably about, I don't know, 2 millimeters. It's got a really sticky rubber that they're using. The grip on these is excellent. Whatever challenging surface that I put these on, I thought they did a good job in terms of grip. And another thing that I really like about the outsole design of the shoe is that it's primarily just a flat contact outsole. There's not a ton of toe spring and there's not a huge heel rocker. So when you have these shoes, it feels like you're planted on the ground. Now taking a look at the insole of the Move trainers, which is an anatomically molded, easily removable insole. You can get rid of it if you wanted to and just use custom orthotics, but I actually think it's pretty good. It's comfortable, it's breathable, and it never really feels like it gets in the way. The first thing that came to mind when I unboxed the Move trainers was that I thought they felt light in my hands. When I actually got them on the scale though, they weighed in at 12.8 ounces for a men's size 10.5, which is not a heavy shoe by any means, but is also not a really light shoe, or what I consider a really light shoe. If anything, it errs on the lighter side, but realistically, comparing it to all the other shoes in the market, it kind of just falls right in the middle, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Even when you have the shoes on though, they have a more airy kind of light feeling to them. Now let's go back to the midsole design of this shoe really quick. So I want to highlight one of the features of the shoe, which is the TPU midsole wrap, which actually houses the EVA midsole on this shoe. This is not a piece of midsole, it's just something to keep the midsole in place and also protect it against rope abrasion or whatever might actually damage the midsole. So the purpose of having a design like this is not only for the durability, but also for stability reasons. You have a midsole in there that is less willing to expand because you have more dense or hard walls for it to push against. The TPU wrap also rises up a little bit over the upper to give you sidewalls for better foot containment. Okay, so when it comes to sizing your Move trainers, I'm gonna recommend that you go with whatever you're getting your training shoes in at the moment. I feel like these fall pretty much in line with everybody else's sizing. So I got them in at a size 10.5, which is my normal shoe size at the moment. I'd say the majority of my shoes fall into a 10.5. My Reds, my Haze, Metcons, Reebok Nano 14s, pretty much everything right now. And the While on Earths fit me pretty good. I would say that they're actually a little bit on the bigger side, but I don't think it's big enough for me to want to size these shoes down. Another thing that I think people are really gonna like about these shoes is that the toe box is nice and wide and anatomical. If I had one gripe about it, it's probably that there's not a ton of volume, so space on top of your toes is a little bit limited, but since the upper is so soft and breathable, it's not really that big a deal to me. And then another thing that is kind of a gripe is that if you have skinny ankles like me, then you might run into some issues with heel slip or just the ankle collar, just not really feeling all that secure, which is pretty easily remedied by just using the lace lock function on these shoes. Also, these shoes fit very neutral. There's really no arch. And if you were somebody that had collapsed arches or really flat feet, I don't think that you'd find yourself in a situation where the arch on this was too much or that the TPU sidewalls would press into your foot at all. I never really ran into any hot spots inside of the shoe, and I think just the fit overall is very comfortable on the Move trainers, and I think a lot of people are gonna be okay with the width of this shoe. The area that I thought the Move trainers excelled in was in the name. It was just straight up moving around. I thought that these were a very comfortable shoe to wear for bodyweight movements, for agility movements, and more so running. I thought that these were a very comfortable pair of shoes to run in. There's really nothing special about the midsole. It's not like a high rebound midsole. It's just a really well cushioned EVA midsole foam. And pair that with a flexible chassis or flexible moving shoe, and you have something that is just easy to run in. They're not a very heavy pair of shoes. They're not also a light pair of shoes, but I mean, comparing them to some of the other training shoes out there that are more stiff, less flexible, and have a more dense midsole, the Move trainers are just really nice to run in. Now, this is not saying that I would take them for a 5K run or anything. I would still change to a pair of running shoes, or recommend getting a pair of running shoes if you plan on running distances up to like 3 miles at a time. But if you have like a workout like Murph where you're running 2 miles and they're split up, then I think the Moves are gonna do great for something like that. The very first workout that I used these shoes for was the 9/11 workout, which has a 2,000 meter run to start, and I honestly thought that I was going to take these shoes off somewhere during that workout, but I kept them on the entirety of the run because I felt that comfortable in them, and they still held up for all the rest of the movements in that workout. There's like every movement in that workout, and then there's the row at the end, and all throughout I felt very comfortable. Now, when it came to other jumping movements like double unders and box jumps, I did think that the cushioning on the shoe might be a little bit too soft. It threw off my timing a little bit for double unders when I initially got into jumping, but after a little bit I got used to it, and then I was able to just do my double unders unbroken from there. And when it came to box jumps, I thought the shoes were very comfortable, and then grip on top of the box was also very good, but coming off the box and going into the next jump wasn't totally responsive because of just the softness of the midsole. Though I will say that with both movements, my feet felt very comfortable throughout longer sets. And when it came to burpees, I did, for whatever reason, a ton of burpees in these shoes over the last month or so, and I can't really think of a better shoe to do all those burpees in than the Move trainers because of just how flexible these shoes are. They move with your feet really well. They're extremely breathable. They could use a bigger toe bumper so you could get a little bit more assistance getting up off the ground, but I thought otherwise my feet stayed very comfortable for longer sets of burpees. An area that I have to knock these shoes on is for rope climbs. I had a workout that only had 5 rope climbs, and I only did 6 in total rope climbs that day, including one just warm-up rope climb. I did not go easy on these shoes. I went up. Grip going up was excellent. Coming down the shoes, like any other shoe that has really good grip, they want to pull off your feet a little bit, but I was trying to slide down to the best of my ability. And after it was all said and done, the outsole delaminated from the rest of the shoe. Plus, there's a nice little burn mark right there on the TPU material. That and on my other shoe, the While on Earth logo pretty much got burned off there. Those are the only areas in terms of durability that got beat up. The medial guard did exactly what it needed to do and is still fine. The upper on the shoe is still fine. The laces are still fine, but the shoe is not something that I'm going to be able to rope climb anymore. But that's not really a big deal because now I know, and now I'm not going to use these shoes for rope climbs anymore. They did say that this is a one-off thing, that they've seen nobody else has had this issue besides me, and that Brooke Wells did like 100 rope climbs without any issue. So I'm going to put this on the shoe being an early build, and maybe my pair was just a defective pair. All right, so now let's talk about my favorite thing to do in a training session, and that is lifting. How well did these do when it came to moving weight? I use them for just about every lift that you could think of. Sandbags, dumbbells, kettlebells, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and they did admirably. I wouldn't say that these are the very first pick of the litter when choosing a shoe to go heavy with, but for the majority of the weights that people are going to do on a day-to-day basis, I feel like these are going to handle that perfectly fine. We're talking about weights ranging up to about 80% of your 1 rep maxes. I felt like when I was anywhere over 80%, 85 to even like 100%, trying out like 5 rep maxes, 30 rep maxes, 1 rep maxes, that's when the move trainers started to fall a little flat. But otherwise, I found that the midsole on these shoes is kind of a double-edged sword because yeah, it's comfortable for when you're doing your body weight and running exercises, but it's a little bit too comfortable for when you're doing your lifting movements. Like I said, it's probably gonna be okay for most people up to like 80%, which is typically all you're gonna find in a normal CrossFit workout. But when it comes to like maxing out for strength, then these shoes struggle a little bit. The midsole on these shoes does compress and is on the vague side. I noticed this the most when I was doing like touch and go power cleans for a 5 rep max. By the 5th rep, I just completely lost the feeling in this shoe. The midsole compresses a good amount, so it's not super responsive when your feet touch down. And by the end of that set, I just dropped the bar because I just didn't have the feeling of being planted on the ground anymore. Another area that I noticed the midsole being mushy was when I had like an 85% back squat. My feet just never really felt settled when I was doing the squat. I was still able to finish the set, and I wouldn't say that I was in any kind of danger from having a softer shoe on, but I remember feeling like my heel just never got settled when I was doing my set. But if you're somebody that's looking for the absolute most firm shoe to lift in, this is probably not going to be the shoe for you, nor was it designed to be that shoe. This is not supposed to be a competition type shoe. The shoe is really designed to be something that can comfortably get you to the gym, adequately get you through your workout, and comfortably get you home with some kind of style. When it came to other lifting movements such as kettlebells, I thought that these actually did pretty decent for kettlebells, though they do have that 6mm drop that some people are not gonna like. I thought that the flat contact outsole did a good enough job in kind of compensating for the heel lift on this shoe. This is not something that I would recommend to do super heavy deadlifts in. It's got a good amount of heel foam that is also soft. It's also got that 6mm drop, so you're never gonna really feel all that settled when doing heavy deadlifts. But for like WOD weight deadlifts, 225 up to 315, I think that these are gonna do just fine. And I thought these did actually really good for high torque movements, such as things like devil's press, dual dumbbell snatches, and sandbag cleans. I use these for sandbag cleans, and I thought that they were not going to be that good because typically when you have shoes that are more flexible torsionally, they want to twist and turn and everything. But I thought that these shoes held firm and were comfortable and stable while lifting a sandbag. Okay, so the While on Earth Move Trainers retail for $150, which at this point is just the normal price of training shoes, though some people will say that is still on the expensive side, which I will agree with. I don't think that training shoe prices are trending in the right direction. Now, is this shoe worth $150? It really just depends on who you're talking to. I think $150 is a fair price to pay for the Move Trainers. And the thing that really sticks out about this shoe to me is just its overall wearability. It's not the best shoe to lift in. That I will never refute, but it is a shoe that you're gonna want to wear daily because of how comfortable it is. For the majority of the people out there, you're gonna be able to lift in this shoe just fine. But what it does outside of lifting, just overall mobility, flexibility, easy to move around and easy to throw on. I think these shoes are easy to wear, easy to stand in, easy to coach in. And you know, when you think about the shoe as a whole, all the other, I guess, facets about it make up for it's just not being able to be something that you can lift maximal loads in. And I think for a lot of people, that's gonna be fine because if you're trying to max out, most people will just throw on a pair of lifters. I'm the oddity that likes to lift heavy in my just training shoes, but I think a lot of people out there are just fine putting on a pair of lifters when their training shoes are feeling too soft. Now, when it comes to things like branding, there are people out there that see the name While on Earth and they're like, man, that's a terrible name. I'm never gonna wear that shoe because of the name. Honestly, if you put these shoes on, you wear them around, I think that you will forget the fact that the name is not that great, and I'll be the first to admit that the name is not that great, but I don't really care so much because the shoe is something that I actually want to wear. This has been a shoe that I've worn throughout the last month of my training, and no matter what the workout called for, I never doubted putting these shoes on. They handled everything very well. There's very few deficiencies in these shoes. Obviously, I would like something a little bit more stable, and going forward, I would recommend just putting a more responsive foam in there and just kind of keeping everything the same. I think the heel lockdown could be also a little bit better. But all things considered, I think that this is a very good first effort from a brand new company. And if you're somebody like me that is in the gym for long periods of time a day, I think you should really check out the While on Earth. If you're somebody that's just, you live in your trainers all day long, this is a very comfortable shoe to wear all day. The only people that I wouldn't recommend these shoes for are people that are just like maxing out their lifts back to back to back days, which is probably not that great of an idea. But for pretty much everybody else, I highly recommend that you check out the While on Earth trainers. They are easily one of the best training shoes this year, and definitely the most comfortable trainer this year. So if you guys have any questions about the While on Earth trainers, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And as always, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.